Hi everyone, it's Katrina.
Number 9. Rome was united and Greece was not. Ancient Greeks shared a common culture, but the people were not politically united. When Alexander the Great died in 323 BC, his empire was split among his generals, resulting in a power gap and fighting between territories. During this time, known as the Hellenistic period, city-states on the Greek peninsula fell into decline. Greek cultural centers emerged in other areas, including modern-day Egypt and Turkey. During this same time period, Rome became more powerful and established itself as a threat to the Greeks. In 215 BC, parts of Greece allied with Carthage against the burgeoning Roman Empire. This became known as the First Macedonian War. But the fragmented Greek city-states were already at constant war among themselves, with frequently changing alliances and the poorer classes increasingly rebelling against the aristocracy. This problem made it difficult for them to wholly unite against their common enemy, the Romans. The Romans defeated northern Greece or Macedonia in 197 BC at the Battle of Cynosophilae and again in 168 BC at the Battle of Pydna, and continued their conquests throughout the region from there. Number 8. The Battle of Corinth. Because each Greek city-state was independent, Rome did not conquer all of Greek civilization in a massive takeover. Instead, the Romans took a step-by-step approach, seizing one territory at a time through both diplomacy and warfare. In 146 BC, the Battle of Corinth saw the defeat of the Achaean League, a loosely linked organization of northern Greek city-states that included the cities of Corinth and Sparta. Led by General Mummius, a Roman army consisting of 23,000 infantry and cavalry of 3,500, secured an easy victory against the outnumbered Achaeans, who had 14,000 infantry and a cavalry of 600. Corinth was completely destroyed in the battle, and its men were killed while women and children were forced into slavery. The Roman victory opened the door for further conquest over the Greek peninsula. After establishing Macedonia, the northernmost territory, as a Roman province, the conquerors extended their power southward. The annihilation of Corinth happened in the same year as the defeat of Carthage. These victories allowed the Roman Republic to establish its authority in both North Africa and Greece. Rome was able to consolidate its power and advance its status as the most powerful city in the Mediterranean. Augustus Caesar completed the takeover of the Greek peninsula in 27 BC, when he established it as the province of Achaia. Number 7. Mithridatic War. From 89 to 85 BC, in the First Mithridatic War, several Greek city-states allied with the Kingdom of Pontus in challenging the Roman rule and conquest of the Greek world. After becoming king of Pontus, Mithridates VI focused on expanding his kingdom, and in the process stepped on the toes of neighboring Roman client states. He also alienated his own family members, including his sister Laodice, the queen of Cappadocia. But he played his politics well enough to recruit powerful help to purge his rivals from their thrones and claim rights to rule. The Roman Senate attempted to restore power to these people, but Mithridates and his co-conspirators repeatedly seized it back. Rome eventually became fed up with Mithridates' antics and declared war on the Pontic kingdom. Although the Roman troops were initially badly outnumbered, they persisted in their efforts to overpower Mithridates' forces and finally secured a victory after 5 years of fighting. This victory forced Mithridates to abandon his efforts and return to Pontus. This was the first in a series of conflicts between Mithridates and the Roman Empire called the Mithridatic Wars, which can be summarized as a 30-year-long tug-of-war that the Romans ultimately won, and the Romans destroyed the Pontic kingdom in the process. Number 6. Tolerance and cultural spread. Greek culture heavily influenced the ancient world both before and after the Roman conquest. The Romans adopted the mythology, deities, and many other aspects of Greek culture and lifestyle. Once the Romans took charge of Greece, they allowed the Greeks to carry on with their traditional ways of life, including the continued use of their language, as long as they complied with the new leadership. The Romans even borrowed elements of Greek law and government, philosophy, literature, architecture, and education in establishing their own system. This process helped spread Greek culture as their power expanded throughout Europe. As you may already know, the Romans had a tendency to claim ownership of historically Greek beliefs and customs by renaming gods and goddesses and making other changes to reflect the Roman lifestyle. Zeus became Jupiter, Hera became Juno, Ares, Mars, and so on. But what did they believe in before? The Romans had always been practical and had many cults that worshipped different things. They also borrowed many gods from the Etruscans. Over the years, they adopted the Greek gods and turned them into their own, and each city could adopt their own patron god and perform their own rituals. It was more about following rules and rituals in their daily life than about one god in particular. Their tolerance and admiration for Greek culture likely made their subjects more compliant and kept them happy on some level, and gave rise to the saying, "Rome may have conquered Greece, but the Greek culture has conquered Rome." As the Romans expanded into the Balkans and Egypt, the Roman religion absorbed many of the gods and cults of the conquered places, but the main influence was always the pantheon of the Greeks. Number 5. Suppressing revolts. Ancient Greece was considerably weakened by its lack of unity, but this didn't stop individual city-states from rebelling against Roman rule. During the First Mithridatic War and the siege of Athens and Piraeus, the Hellenistic kingdom of Pontus and the city-state of Athens teamed up against Roman forces. The Roman armies were commanded by General Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix. The conflict started in 87 BC when Sulla invaded Athens, only to find that the city-state's outer wall, which connected it to the port at Piraeus, was in ruins. Left with no other choice, the general carried out 2 sieges, one against Athens, the other against Piraeus. His first goal was to destroy the port at Piraeus, hoping to stop any incoming supplies from reaching the enemy. When his army was successfully pushed out, Sulla furthered his war efforts by minting valuable currency, chopping down all the trees in the region, and building siege works. Upon discovering that there were more walls within Athens, a stalemate ensued. By then, the Athenians were starving almost to death, and the price of grain was raised to exorbitant prices, forcing residents to eat shoe leather and grass to stay alive. An Athenian delegation failed to reason with Sulla, and Greeks increasingly deserted Athens, while refugees fleeing warfare in Rome arrived at Sulla's camp in droves. This problem made him realize that the reinforcements he expected might never arrive. Sulla ordered the sacking of all religious statues and temples in the area. Acting on tips from Athenian deserters about a neglected portion of the city wall, he ordered soldiers to destroy it, and they took out a 900-foot-long portion. The siege went on for 5 months and finally ended with a bloody midnight attack on Athens. Archelaus, one of the 2 leaders of the Greek Pontic forces, fled the city while the other commander, Aristion, stayed behind and tried to fend off the Roman attackers, but they surrendered when they ran out of water and were executed shortly after. Athens was utterly destroyed, and its survivors were heavily punished for their attempts to defend Greek freedom. Number 4. Innovative fighting styles. Greece rose to power with the help of an innovative fighting style known as the phalanx. Armed with 8-foot-long spears, short swords, and shields, ancient Greek foot soldiers, called hoplites, marched in an 8-man deep line. Their exact methods remain a topic of debate to this day, with some historians believing that the hoplites' shields overlapped to create a protective barrier against incoming spears. But this would have required the soldiers to march extremely close to one another with little personal space, and most experts agree that the phalanx formation typically allotted 3 feet of space between soldiers. The spacing gave them enough room to perform their combat duties effectively. Regardless of how it worked, the phalanx became a dominant fighting style that facilitated the military victories necessary for Greece to emerge as a major power in the ancient world. It was so effective that other societies, including the Roman Republic, started using the same technique. But the phalanx wasn't foolproof, as the Greeks learned when the Romans approached using tactical units called manipules. Adopted around 315 BC, after discovering that the phalanx was impractical for warfare on rugged terrain, the manipular system of warfare was famously described as a phalanx with joints. Each maniple consisted of 120 soldiers of 3 ranks, 40 soldiers each, with 10 maniples making up a legion. Maniples of inexperienced fighters were placed at the front, while moderately experienced combatants were in the middle and veteran soldiers were at the very back of the formation. The manipular legion was arranged in a checkerboard pattern that enabled the front line and middle manipules to retreat and the more seasoned soldiers to advance. They did this without disruption when faced with an enemy that would justify extra support or experienced fighters on the front lines. While this fighting style did not equate to guaranteed victories, it was more flexible than the phalanx and gave the Romans a distinct upper hand in warfare against the Greeks. Number 3. Taking over Egypt. Some historians believe that the Hellenistic period ended in 146 BC with Rome's defeat of Greece in the Battle of Corinth, which enabled the further conquest of the Greek peninsula. But other experts consider the Roman conquest of Greek territories outside the peninsula as the correct event causing the end of Hellenistic Greece. Greek rule came to ancient Egypt when Alexander the Great invaded in 332 BC. When Alexander died, control of the region was handed over to one of his generals, Ptolemy I Soter, who became pharaoh and established the city of Alexandria. Ptolemy and his successors introduced elements of Greek culture while conforming to aspects of the Egyptian lifestyle. As a major Greek cultural center and trading port between Asia, Africa, and Europe, Alexandria became one of the most important Mediterranean cities during this period. But the Ptolemaic dynasty weakened as early as 221 BC, when Ptolemy III died, giving way to corruption and rebellions. Meanwhile, the Roman Empire grew. Things came to a head in 31 BC when Pharaoh Cleopatra VII, the last Ptolemaic ruler, allied with Mark Antony against the Roman leader Octavian in the Battle of Actium. Octavian's forces won the battle, marking the end of Greek rule in Egypt. A year later, Egypt officially became a Roman province. Number 2. Romanizing Anatolia. Rome conquered not only Greece through warfare, but by impressing its culture on the areas it took control of. The Anatolia region, which made up the majority of modern-day Turkey, consisted of several Greek societies, including the Seleucid Empire, the Galatian Celts, and the kingdoms of Pontus, Pergamon, Bithynia, Cappadocia, and Armenia. The Roman Empire started gaining land in Anatolia in 133 BC, when it inherited the kingdom of Pergamon from the ruler Attalus III upon his death. After obtaining Bithynia the same way, the Romans went on to conquer the kingdom of Pontus and all the other territories. These Greek city-states had operated independently of one another for a long time by then, and their cultures and customs had become independent and different. This forced the conquerors to tailor the Romanization process to each location's beliefs and practices. One way the Romans implemented cultural change in their newly gained territories was by having both active and retired Roman soldiers settle within them. This helped to spread the empire's preferred language and customs to locals. The Romans also invested vast sums of money in buildings and infrastructure to accommodate its citizens living in Anatolia, integrated the culture into existing institutions, and built monuments to the conquering general. Locals were also given the option to enroll in the Roman military, which served as yet another way for the empire to put its stamp on the region. Upon completing their service, soldiers received Roman citizenship. By allowing its subjects to mostly continue with their Hellenistic practices uninterrupted and gradually infusing these societies with its traditions, the Roman Empire secured an ideological and cultural foothold that could not be achieved through force. Number 1. Keeping the peace. Conquering a territory through warfare and aggression is only one step in the process of truly controlling it. The Roman Empire saw the value in allowing its Greek subjects some degree of control and autonomy as a way of gaining their cooperation, or at least minimizing their likelihood to rebel. Rome experienced an unprecedented 200-year period of peace after Caesar Augustus defeated Cleopatra and Mark Antony in the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. Finalizing the Roman Empire's conquest of Greece. Known as the Pax Romana, or the Roman Peace, this era came after centuries of rampant civil warfare and warring between Rome and other civilizations, including the Greeks. Augustus focused on reducing the prospect of internal strife by creating a military junta, or a committee of powerful military leaders, unifying Rome's troops across the empire's frontiers. While Rome controlled its provinces militarily, and the people living within them were subject to Roman taxes, they were more or less free to self-govern and benefited from the protection of Roman soldiers. These provinces also benefited economically from the military presence. Their occupancy strengthened trade and local production to a point where the average person could enjoy the prosperity that was previously reserved for better-off citizens. The Pax Romana also came with a heightened emphasis on formal education, art, architecture, literature, philosophy, and learning in general. Greek writers such as Plutarch, Ptolemy, and Galen of Pergamum flourished during this period. The vast empire's territorial limits expanded to their maximum, and its population peaked at 70 million during the Pax Romana. But with growth comes consequences, and Rome became difficult to manage because of its sheer size. With barbarian attacks on the rise, the government was forced to overspend on security and military costs while neglecting other expenses, causing towns and cities to lose their vitality, and it triggered a widespread decline. Thanks for watching! Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!